Hello and welcome to Pluribus Unum's Fireside Chats. Not as good as FDR's, but hey, it's something. Now, before we get into the main topic of this video, let me do a little bit of, promotion, I guess. I've done 2 recent appearances on 2 people's separate shows, Sunflower Socialist and Niall Elkin. I'll include a link to the playlist of appearances on all of my appearances on other people's channels, so you can watch all of them, I guess. There's also another appearance I did on Facebook in Independence Media Network, but that was like a long time ago. So anyways, that's pretty much all I have to say on that, so let's get right into the news. First off, we have Senator Josh Hawley introduces bill to crack down on bad landlords. Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri is introducing legislation on Monday directing public housing officials to better track landlords who do not maintain basic living standards for tenants. Why it matters: renters' rights are getting more attention as the nation's affordable housing crisis worsens in nearly all communities. The Bad Landlord Database Act would require the Department of Housing and Urban Development to create a database to contract violations and terminations with landlords participating in the House Choice Voucher Program. Under the law, local public housing authorities would have to report negligent landlords to federal officials. Now, you might be wondering, why am I talking about this? Well, I mean, for starters, isn't this a thing we like? We want affordable housing and we want bad landlords to be accounted for? Yes. But this is important for another thing. This is setting the stage for 2024. See, people are kind of starting to speculate on 2024. Not a lot of people, because we're still in the midst of this presidential election, but people are speculating on 2024. And I might make a video speculating on 2024, presumably after 2020 ends. I'm gonna wait at least until the final vote is counted before I officially speculate on the 2020 election. But this is gonna be a bit of a hint. Josh Hawley is going to take up the mantle of the populist conservative that Trump is. Appeal to lefties on certain issues, appeal to the populist left things on certain issues, but definitely don't go too far. For example, during the 2016 election, Trump was saying, I'm not going to take away your Medicare, everybody's going to be covered in our nation, everybody's going to be covered. But he didn't explicitly say, I'm for Medicare for all. Hawley isn't completely like that kind of paleo-con-ish person, but Hawley's gonna, at least, in theory, I think Hawley is going to be that kind of person in the future. And Hawley is, an attractive young man. He's considered kind of the future of conservatism. You're gonna be seeing him in the future for better and for worse. Pretty soon we'll also have to be speculating on who's going to be our candidate to challenge this guy with real populism. I don't know. Speaking of populism, this is a thing for possible future run. Andrew Yang says he's looking to run for New York City mayor. Andrew Yang, a former 2020 Democratic presidential contender, told BuzzFeed News that he was considering running to be New York City mayor. The tech entrepreneur said his team was looking at running for the office of New York City's elections next year, but would look carefully at the field first, because I tend to want to do something where I feel like I'm going to have a big impact and add a lot of value. So if there's someone who's already running who would have a very positive agenda that is very aligned with me, I'm not someone who's driven by the maximum political advantage. It also goes on to say apparently Michael Bloomberg gave Andrew Yang advice in looking into running for New York City mayor, and even offered him a chance to run as VP. Yeah, that's slightly concerning, to be honest. But Bloomberg obviously just wants to get in on that, Yang Gang hype. Yang Gang still has a decent amount of momentum. even going so far as some of them to throw the vote away and vote for Andrew Yang in primaries. And I'm like, guys, literally, just stop. He does not want you to vote for him in primaries anymore. He dropped out. If he wanted you to vote for him, he'd still be in the race. Look, I'm telling you, he doesn't want you to vote for him anymore. If you're one of those still voting Yang people, please don't. Vote for a candidate who you think can bring Yang's momentum forward. And I think you know who I would suggest as the perfect candidate for that. So we'll just leave it at that. Now, what do I think of this? Well, it's interesting. It's an interesting turn of events. You see, New York is going to be having some upcoming elections in the future. In 2021, New York City mayor, obviously. And in 2022, there'll be a gubernatorial and Senate election. Now, that's going to be interesting for New York coming forward, because there's a decent amount of speculation on who could be progressives that could be in any of these seats. Like, for example, some people suggested Jumaine Williams or Nomiki Konst to make a run for New York City mayor. I mean, Jumaine had the ability to. He's a New York City public advocate, which is like the thing right under mayor, which is what Bill de Blasio was before he became New York City mayor. But you know, Jumaine stated that he's not going to run. In upper races, Cynthia Nixon is speculated to try again running against Cuomo. Though there's also been thoughts, at least in my end, that Bill de Blasio might be interested in, like, either this or the Senate run. And I mean, for the Senate run, Sam Cedar has kind of stated that he's running, but it's probably a joke. But there's been a lot more speculation that AOC might be running for the seat, especially considering the New York delegation is kind of trying to get rid of her congressional district. Meaning that she would either have to run against another candidate, like another incumbent New York City, like not New York City, like New York congressional person. So maybe she'd use that as an excuse to run for the next, like, go up in the New York, like, power structure or whatever. Now, I kind of would be down to see Yang run for New York City mayor, though it does break a promise that he made. Like, in 2018, they were asking him, why don't you run for Senate? Why don't you run for governor? But he was saying, like, no, I don't want to run for those small races. I feel that the UBI platform, I need to bring it to the national stage, and I can only do it on the national stage. Now it's like, well then, why are you running for freaking mayor? I mean, yes, it's New York City, and that's a big city, but you're still just running for mayor. That's nothing. That is nothing at this point. Now, again, to be fair, Yang, you could run for mayor if you want. I'm just saying, personally, my speculation is not even on the mayor race. It's that, my speculation is that de Blasio might make a run for Senate. And I mean, I'd be down, although I'd also be down with AOC if her district goes away. But I mean, you know, I'd just want to see a progressive take down Chuck Schumer and Andrew Cuomo, to be honest. And I'd like to see a progressive take up, like, an even more progressive mantle than Bill de Blasio did in his New York tenure. Next story is coming from The Intercept. New bill would protect journalists from being prosecuted for publishing classified information. Almost a year after the Trump administration unsealed indictment against WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, two progressive members of Congress are trying to prevent a World War I-era secrecy law from being used to investigate and prosecute journalists for publishing classified information. The legislation to amend the 1917 Espionage Act was introduced by Oregon Democratic Senator Ron Wyden in the Senate and California Democratic Representative Ro Khanna in the House of Representatives. Wyden and Khanna told The Intercept they crafted the legislation to preserve government's need for secrecy while strengthening protections for members of the press and expanding legal channels for government whistleblowers. When I think about espionage, I'm thinking about someone like Aldrich Ames, Wyden said in an interview, referring to the CIA officer who passed secrets to the KGB before his arrest in 1994. What my bill does is refocus the Espionage Act to the core issue, which is ensuring that the more of our 4 million government employees and contractors with a secret clearance don't violate their oaths by divulging government secrets. The Espionage Act makes it a crime for anyone to share secrets relating to national defense with people who are not authorized to hear them. The statute makes no exception for members of the press who obtain the report classified information, but it is a broad agreement among legal scholars that prosecuting a journalist for unearthing secrets and publishing government secrets would violate the First Amendment. The Wyden Khanna bill would narrow the scope of the law to primarily target officers with current or expired security clearances, as well as any agents of a foreign government to whom they pass the information. Members of the press or the public could be prosecuted if they committed a separate crime in the course of obtaining the information, but not for soliciting information for speech activity like publishing. So yeah, many people are pointing out that this piece of legislation is clearly supposed to just be sort of protection for people like Julian Assange. Like, publishing classified information would not be a crime under this bill, and this seems to be explicitly focused on the Assange case, and it also explains that it tries to make the whistleblower process easier to do, so that they don't have to do a Manning or Snowden and just steal the information. And I mean, to be honest, Wyden, it's a little interesting to see Wyden be the one to introduce this bill. To be fair, it's probably like, oh, Bernie and Warren are busy running for president, or something like that. It's kind of like Markey being the one who has to be the one who, like, supports the Green New Deal. It's like, really? Him? Like, they're the ones who are gonna do it? Like, you couldn't pick a higher profile guy? Now, I mean, Wyden personally is alright, but I mean, look, in a tier list of senators, it'd be like S tier Bernie, A tier Merkley, B tier Baldwin, Warren, C tier Markey, D tier Wyden, Paul, Lee, and Sherrod Brown. Then the rest, like something like that. I don't know, because some of them it's like you're good on these issues but not good on these issues. I don't know why you're not good on these issues but you're good on these issues. I don't know. It's just really weird. Senators is like, it's weird. House members, it's a lot more. You get a lot more people that are okay, but in the Senate, you're like just good or not good. The only disappointing thing about these two bills is that there aren't any co-sponsors, and I'm gonna be sending. I mean, I would send David Price this thing, but David Price, he's like not gonna sign on this bill. He's just not. I don't know. Maybe he'll surprise me. Maybe he'll sign on the bill, but he won't do anything. And the next thing is I'm going to be talking about Super Tuesday, the precursor and the aftermath, and the day itself. And we'll be seeing little interesting things. For starters, the day before Super Tuesday, or like 2 days before Super Tuesday, Amy Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg all of a sudden just dropped out of the presidential race. Then endorsed Biden. And then Robert Francis O'Rourke came out of retirement. And then immediately endorsed Joe Biden. And going into Super Tuesday, a lot of the states were definitely leaning Bernie. But after all of that kind of thing, here's how the vote totals ended up being. Alabama, Joe Biden. Arkansas, Joe Biden. California, Bernie. Colorado, Bernie. Maine, Biden. Massachusetts, Biden. Minnesota, Biden. North Carolina, Biden. Oklahoma, Biden. Tennessee, Biden. Texas, Biden. Utah, Bernie. Vermont, Bernie. Virginia, Biden. As you can see, it wasn't the best night. I don't remember if I think maybe Bernie won the delegate total of the night, just because of California. But he didn't win the most states, obviously. Biden won pretty much the whole South, which many people attribute to a lot of things. For starters, Biden's South Carolina win kind of brought many people to be like, oh, I guess Joe Biden's campaign isn't dead. He finally won a state after, 1988? I don't remember. But since 1988, when he first started running for president, he finally won a state. Amazing. And I mean, as we all know, the South has a decent African-American population, and a lot of them being older African-Americans, so they ended up mostly going towards Biden because, to be fair, it's partly default support, partly Obama years, default support, Obama years mixed together, oh, who's that? Oh yeah, Biden. Biden was Obama's VP. Yeah, I like Obama. I like Biden. It's not knocking them. It's true because, look at the exit polls. Look at all the stuff. It shows Bernie does well with the younger people. Older people mostly go to Biden. Another factor being Biden got last minute support from centrists that actually had popularity. Oh, and Amy Klobuchar. Seriously, I don't get any support that Amy Klobuchar ever got. She didn't really get any. People who were going to go vote on election day, who supported either Pete or Amy or someone else, may have actually went to Joe Biden because of the last minute surge in support. I kind of know this for a fact because I have a teacher who, on the day of Super Tuesday, was wearing my Bernie shirt in class, and he said he supported one candidate, but then at the last second changed his vote to someone else. Now, since I know he's a smart person, he obviously wasn't supporting Amy, he was supporting Pete, because Pete had at least somewhat momentum. So yeah, a lot of the centrist support that would have went to one of those two guys kind of went to Biden, because Biden got last minute surge in support. Another factor is Biden got that support, but Bernie did not. The two people that were kind of siphoning off a little bit of Bernie support, Warren and Tulsi, did not drop out at the time. So there were quite a few states where it seemed that Warren got a decent amount of support that, hypothetically, if it went to Bernie, Bernie would have won. We all know this classic story, Ralph Nader, Whatever, that part is so. Many people say that maybe many Warren supporters would have went to Biden, because I'm not going to get to that in a second. I'm going to get to that soon, but not now, because that's a bit of a spoiler. Another factor is youth turnout. Youth turnout in this election has kind of been meh, though that is not entirely their fault. It might be partly their fault, but it's not entirely their fault. You see, many polling places either had incredibly long lines, like in Texas, or were flat out closed. So it's a bit of a problem if you want turnout to be high, if you turn away people who are voting. Which is why I always recommend vote early if you can. It'll save you time. It'll save you time in the long run. I've voted twice in my life so far. One early, one in person, in reverse order. I voted in person in the 2018 midterms, and I voted early in this election. Voting early is a better way to do things. To be fair, I voted on day one of early voting, so kind of have all you beat in that regard. Now, of course, those are a lot of the factors that went into play during all this. Now, that news, it really got a lot of burners down. A lot of burners were sad. Bernie didn't have a sweep like we thought he did. There were some people who were speculating that Bernie would win literally 13 of the 14 people of the 14 areas that were going to vote. 13 of them would go to Bernie. Now, even I was that's probably not true. At most, it's 10 or 8 or 9 or something like that. But Bernie didn't have the night that we all thought he would. But that didn't mean progressives didn't have the night that we wanted. Well, yes, it's true, we did lose a decent amount of down the ballot races. Not all of them. Mark Campa-Najjar made it to round 2. Audrey Denny made it to round 2. Liam O'Meara made it to round 2. Mike Siegel and Donna Imam made it to a runoff election. David Wilson Brown won District 5 primary in North Carolina. Oh, and there was another one. I forget. Oh, yeah. Shahid Buttar made it to round 2 against Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi is going to have a forefront progressive challenge. This is interesting. We're going to be seeing good things going down the election. And in a lot of other down the ballot races, there were some other decent progressive wins that I guess I wasn't endorsing and I didn't know. And we also didn't lose any incumbents, like we didn't lose Barbara Lee or Ro Khanna or Jared Huffman, so we're good in that regard. So don't be too bleak. Look to the future. Speaking of the future, then came the days after Super Tuesday. Mike Bloomberg and Elizabeth Warren dropped out of the presidential race. It's been surprising. I think it's in that order. Bloomberg dropped out before Warren. So yes, it is coalescing to be a 2-person race. Oh, and Tulsi. But we'll get to her in a second. There's been a lot of speculation over Warren. Will she endorse? Will she not endorse? Who will she endorse? Many people who are in the Warren camp are making their decisions very clear. The ones that are making sense are saying that they back Bernie Sanders. The ones that don't make sense are the ones that are like, I was gonna support Bernie, but his supporters are mean online, so I can't support him. And the worst part is Warren is parroting the similar stuff as well. She's saying like, I don't owe it to anybody to endorse a candidate, or his supporters are so mean sometimes. He needs to wrangle in his supporters. It's like, Warren, seriously? You're seriously still mad that people posted snake emojis to you? Guess what? No one cares about the fucking snake emojis. The rat emojis. Nobody cares. Because guess what? That's not real life. Like 10% of Bernie Sanders supporters called you a snake. Ooh. I guess that means you don't support universal healthcare anymore. That's literally a fucking meme. The meme is like, oh, Bernie's supporters are mean to me. Now I think poor people should die due to lack of health insurance. It's like, this is why we gave you the freaking snake emojis. You are tiptoeing on this issue. Went through the entire primary. You tried to make it 100% clear that you hated Joe Biden. You think he would never be a good candidate for president. Now all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, I don't know if I can endorse one or the other. Seriously? Are you... To any Warren supporter, or even Warren herself, if you're listening to this, listen clearly. If you gave a fuck about the plans you were spending the entire primary bragging about, Warren's got a plan for that, Warren's got a plan for that, Warren's got a plan for that. If you cared about a single one, you would be backing Bernie right now. Look, whatever happened before she dropped out, that's fine, whatever. You supported Warren, so what? I don't care. Guess what? If you cared about the issues, you would be taking that ballot to go vote for Bernie in your election, because guess what? He's the candidate of your plans now. You think for a single second that Bernie wouldn't be endorsing Warren if she had a sweep on Super Tuesday and was beating Biden head on. You think he'd be staying in the race? No, he would have dropped out immediately and would be campaigning right now for Elizabeth Warren, saying Warren's got a plan for that. And guess what? Everyone in the Bernie camp would follow. Okay, not everyone, but I mean like AOC, Chewy Garcia, all these big progressive names, they'd be going behind Bernie and going to Warren. Whether or not the people who post snake emojis would, that's whatever. And I really don't understand the freaking notion of like, oh, Bernie's supporters are mean. Ooh, that's so scary. People on their computers posted a meme about the gulags and me being a war criminal, me voting for Donald Trump's 3 military budgets, me voting for Donald Trump's Supreme Court justices, me voting for a war bill or something. Oh no, very mean. Ooh, look, nobody cares. You're a person in power. These mean tweets do nothing to you. I mean, if there was Bernie supporters running over to Elizabeth Warren with a knife yelling, I'm gonna fucking gun you like a fish, like, then we can say, okay, Bernie supporters are mean. But guess what? They post a meme criticizing Joe Biden or Elizabeth Warren or Pete Buttigieg or whoever. Literally nobody cares. That is nothing. That is literally nothing. Nobody cares. Just literally nobody gives a shit. Like, and you talk about like this rural vote of like, who doesn't care about this issue? Like, you think if you go over to a person randomly on the street and you're like, hey, did you know a Bernie supporter posted a snake emoji to respond to Elizabeth Warren voting for Trump's military budget? What would your response be? They'd be like, what? And Warren, you were on the forefront of this. When Kamala Harris tried to outflank you on being leftier than thou, she was like, will you support me in banning Trump from Twitter? And you're like, no, what the fuck is wrong with you? That's stupid. Because guess what? Nobody cares. Look, I mean, you claim Bernie supporters are, like, mean. A guy showed up to a Bernie rally with a freaking Nazi flag and waved it around. Yeah, but Bernie supporters posted snake memes on Twitter. They try to draw parallels to Trump supporters for some freaking reason. It's like, to make them seem like monsters. They're not monsters. Like, I don't get this notion of, like, people thinking Bernie Sanders supporters are sexist white boys when Bernie has one of the most diverse coalitions of any presidential candidate in history. They are well-spoken. They know what the fuck they're talking about. They don't tolerate any BS. The fact that we're willing to not tolerate BS and be straightforward with what we believe in, and your supporters aren't, what's to say about your supporters? There are politicians who, when they were booed by Bernie supporters, they said they feared for their life. What the fuck do you think a liberal arts student is gonna do to you? They can barely hold down a freaking job. What makes you think that they're gonna hurt you? Now, to get this rant on a different person, Tulsi. Now, Tulsi, Super Tuesday was Tulsi's night as well, because Tulsi got a decent amount of delegates. Let me rattle off the amount of delegates each candidate has by the end of Super Tuesday. Joe Biden has 621 delegates. Bernie Sanders has 553. Tulsi Gabbard has a maxed out number of 2. Yeah, 2 delegates. And notice how I didn't mention her in the, not endorsements, like the people who left the race. Yeah. Tulsi is still running for president for some reason. Now, I legitimately do not know why. Literally every reason that is brought to my attention just can be disproven in a snap. There's some people who say that she's still running to bring issues to the table. Well, she really doesn't have a way to bring them to the table because literally everybody's forgotten about Tulsi Gabbard. Now, I know you might say, well, that's mean. It's true. The pundits have literally gotten their excuse to not have Tulsi ever be talked about ever again. She hasn't appeared in a debate in a long time. And in politics, second you're not in the debates, your campaign's over. Like, no matter what. Third-party candidates with rising momentums like John B. Anderson in 1980 and Ross Perot in 1996, they don't get on the debate stage, their poll numbers go. Gary Johnson in 2016, he was rising in the polls, and so was Jill Stein. And people are saying, like, yeah, I'd like to hear what they have to say. But the second they didn't get into the debates, their plummet, they just was like, no. Like Gary Johnson nearly got 11% in the polls. He ended up getting 3% of the vote. The momentum could have went higher if Gary Johnson was on the debate stage. Larry Lessig in 2016 didn't get into the first debate. His momentum couldn't even get any farther than it could. Mike Gravel managed to get enough donors to get into the first debate. But the second he didn't get in the debate, no, he wasn't able to recover. Marianne Williamson, the second she was kicked off the debate stage, goodbye her. Andrew Yang, the second he got kicked off the debate stage, his momentum started to fizzle. He briefly got a resurgence, but it eventually just fizzled out. Tulsi has been on the debate stage in a long time, and she's literally not going to make the debate stage ever again. How do I know this? Because the DNC literally just confirmed she's not going to be in the next debate. They've confirmed that since they've already sent out 1,000 delegates or so, they've now made it so that you have to have won 20% of the delegates to get into the debate. And as you may have noticed, 2 is not 20% of 1,000, so yeah. Tulsi's not going to be in this debate either. Which has led to many people, again, getting decently mad at the idea of, letting Tulsi in the debate stage. And other people mad about Tulsi still being a candidate in the race. What do I think? Yes. Yes to what, you may ask? Both. Yes, I am mad that Tulsi Gabbard does not get to be on the debate stage, like always. But it's obvious. You all should have known that Tulsi was going to make the debate stage this time. Literally every time she has met the debate threshold since the first time they excluded her from the debate, they always move the poll. In the first debate that she missed, she got she got the polling threshold in 5 polls, but only 2 of them were counted as DNC approved. Then they flat out removed the donor threshold, despite the fact that she was still making the donor threshold for a decent amount of time. Then they made it so that the criteria could be polling or delegates, and the polls would just not include Tulsi and So yeah, it's definitely they definitely were being exclusionary in their tactics of polling and what polling threshold would be counted and whatever. She was literally lessigged, for lack of a better term. Or you could say Johnsoned or Pauled or whatever. This is something that has always happened. They always have 1 or 2 candidates that they just don't like, and they'll never let them on the debate stage. So they don't. They move the goalpost 1,000,000 times so that they don't get on the debate stage, and they never will. And that's the truth for Tulsi Gabbard. She's not going to be on the debate stage anymore. So that begs the question, again, why is she still running? Again, many people have been trying to say, oh, it's to raise her platform. You can't really do that when you're not on the debate stage. And I mean, what platform specifically does she have to raise? She has many policies similar to Bernie. I mean, granted, she might be focused on slightly different aspects of the policy, but her policies and Bernie should be a lot more aligned than you think. So why does she need to keep running in the race? And I might say, oh, well, she needs to raise her profile for a future run for president or something. That would make sense, except for the fact that she's still running. And I might say, well, I mean, wait, wouldn't running be good to raise your platform? Well, yeah, but eventually, if you're going to be running, you're not going to want to run too long if your campaign is literally going nowhere. Like Andrew Yang ran in the first 2 states and then dropped out. So he still had the idea of the momentum with him is strong, just maybe not as strong in the first 2 states. So yeah, her running for any future ambitions is literally just out the window, because why the heck would anybody consider her a serious candidate if she continues to run and gets like she's never reached above double, like she's never gotten to double digits in any of the states she's running so far. Even the ones where she puts all of her momentum. Like in a couple of weeks ago, everybody was putting the momentum in South Carolina. Steyer, South Carolina. Tulsi, South Carolina. Biden, South Carolina. Bernie, South Carolina. You could see whose money and stuff being put into South Carolina ended up doing well for him. But I mean, as you can see, this isn't really boding well for Tulsi. So, literally, what else is there for Tulsi to do? And it's something I keep saying over and over again. There's still time for Tulsi to go back to Hawaii District 4 to prevent Khanna from winning. That's the only thing that Tulsi can do at this point that'll even give her any boost in the progressive movement. Because progressive movement, they're not going to trust her if she continues to run a presidential campaign against Bernie. Like, even Warren, they started easing up a bit when Warren dropped out. Because they're like, okay, you're at least slightly seeing that, you know, your ego is not as important as the issues. So we'll give you props for that. But Tulsi, this is really coming off as just ego over substance. Like, I mean, it's even going so far as to the point where many people are trying to say, like, no, this is a good thing. We're trying to get her to be on the position to run as the future Bernie in 2024. And it's like, guys, this is the 2020 election. We'll cross the 2024 bridge when we get to it. But, you know, we're not going to run Tulsi Gabbard in 2024 as the progressive mainstay if she's not even going to endorse Bernie. How can you claim that you're the progressive mainstay if you're running against the progressive mainstay of this year? So yeah, now on to the smaller candidate of the day, Tulsi Gabbard. Nah, I'm just kidding. Before we get into the real small candidate, I'm going to have to talk about something that he participated in recently. If you know, Free and Equal is a political group that has the idea of bringing together a bunch of smaller party candidates to, you know, debate the issues, because the mainstream media kind of forgot to give these guys a seat on the main stage. In the past, they've held debates with independent Ralph Nader and Chuck Baldwin in 2008, Jill Stein, Rocky Anderson, Virgil Good, and Garrett Johnson in 2012, and a debate with Rocky Anderson, Gloria La Riva, and Darrell Castle in 2016. They invite major party candidates as well, but the major party candidates usually don't come to the debates. They even go so far as to say they usually invite all of the candidates, but they don't, candidates don't normally attend unless they're smaller names. And as you can tell, sometimes if there's potential for them to get onto the big boy stage, they don't show up. I mean, there was potential of Bob Barr getting on the 2008 debate stage, but, you know, there was also whispers of Gary Johnson and Jill Stein trying to get on the debate stage, obviously, but, you know, that's why they didn't show up for Free and Equal that time. They held a 2-part open presidential debate. Well, I mean, it was technically more of a forum than a debate, but, you know, same difference. The first session had Dan Berman of the Libertarian Party, Brian Carroll of the American Solidarity Party, Eric Gerhardt of the Libertarian Party, Charles Kraut of the Constitution Party, J.R. Myers of the Life and Liberty Party, Senator Moya Wasifa Curry for the Green Party, Mark Stewart of the Democratic Party, Arvind Vohra of the Libertarian Party, and Ben Zion of the Transhumanist Party. The second session had Ken Armstrong of the Libertarian Party, Moisey Boyd of the Democratic Party, Mark Charles, an independent candidate, Howie Hawkins of the Green Party, Zoltan Istvan of the Republican Party, Joe Jorgensen of the Libertarian Party, Adam Kokesh of the Libertarian Party, Gloria La Riva of the Party of Socialism and Liberation, and the biggest one of them all, the Vermin Supreme of the Libertarian Party. And after the debate, they flat out said, like, after each of the debates, go to our website, freeandequal.org, so you can vote via approval voting, as in a voting system where you can vote for as many of the people as you want, who are considered the winners of the debate. Now, I, of course, didn't want to be cheesy and say, oh, they all won because they all participated and they're all minor party candidates combating the two-party system. Ugh. I actually wanted to be legitimate and only vote for the ones that I thought did well in the debates. And if you have similar viewpoints to mine, you probably will agree with my choices. But for session 1, the winners were Sydenham Curry, Ben Zion, and Mark Stewart. Sydenham had the policy and the oomph. Ben Zion had mostly policy, and Mark Stewart had mostly the oomph. Policy was, I mean, to be fair, he's a libertarian, I'm not. So, he's a libertarian in lowercase l libertarian. Session 2, Zoltan Istvan, Howie Hawkins, Gloria Lariva, and Vermin Supreme. Lariva kind of, did decent on policy. I felt that she did well, but she's definitely on the lower spectrum of the winners, I guess. Hawkins also did well, but again, it was just kind of mostly policy, but not much oomph. He did have a decent exchange with Adam Kokesh when they were using up each other's minutes. Zoltan Istvan, again, mostly focused on policy like Ben Zion, and it makes sense, they're both transhumanists. And Vermin Supreme, because he's Vermin Supreme. I will say there were some people that were almost good on policy, but they definitely they fell. They fell pretty hard. Not Mark Charles. Mark Charles, he did fine, but I felt it was a big disadvantage that he used all 3 of his minutes at the beginning of his debate. But it was for a good reason, He's a Native American, so he's trying to focus his campaign mostly on Native American issues. I'll include a link in the description and for both sessions, and let me know who you think won the first couple of sessions. I think it'd be interesting. I want to hear feedback. Also, maybe I'll try to open a Discord server or whatever. So yeah, the smaller candidate of the day is going to come from that debate. The one that I thought did well. One of the ones I thought did well, Ben Zion of the Transhumanist Party. Technically, Ben Zion ran as an independent, but now has the nomination of the Transhumanist Party because the Transhumanist Party actually did a decent primary process. He's running on something called the Futurist New Deal. Obviously stealing the name from Elizabeth Warren's Blue New Deal, which was stealing the name of AOC's Green New Deal, which was stealing the name of Howie Hawkins' Green New Deal, which was stealing the name of FDR's New Deal. I'm going to give you a rundown on that platform. Futurist New Deal mandates for blockchain voting and e-voting, casting votes as transactions. We can create blockchain, which keeps track of the tally of votes, online learning options for K through 12. Let's see. Green New Deal and relates to the... basically, they want to focus on... Let me see. They like the Green New Deal. They fight climate change, obviously, because, they want to make people live longer. Let's see. Drug decriminalization. Sex workers are people too. Repeal Citizens United. ALEC. Dismantle under the Futurist New Deal. Futurist New Deal is $52K of universal basic income. They have a full PDF for more policy platforms. One of their policy platforms is Medicare for All Plus, which is Medicare for All with Plus. So technically more than single payer. I assume not multi-payer, I don't know. I'll probably look back on Ben Zion's healthcare plans in a bit. Because I'm going to make an episode in the future in case there's, in case Bernie's not the candidate. I'm going to be making a list of top 10 Bernie alternatives or something. So yeah, now on to the main topic of this video. Strategy for the future. Now if you're watching this channel, I assume you're Bernie Sanders supporters. And if you're not, then don't watch any further, or else you might hear our evil plans or whatever. But basically, here's something I'm going to do. We need to start talking about strategy. And the strategies we're trying to get are, like, of course, trying to get Bernie into the White House. That's the best bet for a progressive alternative president. Like, we want a progressive president in the future, and Bernie's the best bet for that. And Super Tuesday is not the thing we want. We want Bernie to win the most states and go to the convention as the winner. So what's our plan for that? Well, one, we need to acknowledge what we can win. Because here's what I've seen so far. Majority, dead. We're not going to get a majority on the first ballot. It's not going to happen. We're not going to win the nomination outright, technically. So you might say, at this point, why bother? Well, we still have a chance to get a plurality. There's enough states for Bernie to win a plurality in delegates. And, still win the majority percent of the popular vote. So we want to see Bernie, win, obviously. But we also need to acknowledge that there is a chance that that doesn't happen. And the DNC will rig it against him, either by having the remaining superdelegates vote for someone else on the ballot, like Sherrod Brown or Elizabeth Warren. So basically, we need to make it so that we either twist the DNC's hand to force Bernie to be the nominee by winning the most delegates going into the convention, and or expose the DNC for the frauds that they are. Because the thing is, if Bernie wins the most delegates, and the DNC nominates someone else, that would just destroy the Democratic Party altogether. Movement for People's Party could just waltz in with a new political party, and people would vote for them in overwhelming droves. So we need to show the DNC, this is not the thing you want to happen. And we need to show this with rallies. Rally support on Twitter and stuff, hashtag Bernie or bust, hashtag Bernie to Milwaukee. We need to be prepared for a fight. We need to fight. We might need to make the 1968 Democratic National Convention video on that soon look like child's play. That might happen 100%. And Howie Hawkins and the rest of the Greens, they're going to be making appearances there. We gotta show our allyships. We gotta show, hey, look at Howie. Howie's pretty cool, am I right? We gotta show, Sen M's pretty cool, right? Ben Zion, Gloria La Riva, Mark Charles. We need to show that we're not beholden to the Democratic Party. It's one of the biggest things that ultimately leads to the DNC screwing us over every single election cycle. The DNC is the progressive vote is gonna vote for us anyways, so what's the point? Why do we need to give them an olive branch when, there's no reason to? They're gonna vote for us anyways, so why bother giving a progressive nominee for the VP slot? Because progressives are going to vote for us anyway, so why bother? Another thing we need to show is stress electability. Stress electability. Because for some reason, the Democrats that don't pay attention seem to still think that Joe Biden is the most electable. We need to keep showing everybody that is not true. That Biden would do terribly against Trump. We need to show Biden, he's not doing so hot. He's not the person that we wanted to see. He's not the person that people liked in 2012. He's not the person that in 2008 gave that big thing where he was with Rudy Giuliani, we have there's only 3 things that come out of his mouth, a noun, a verb, and 9/11. We need to show, that same person He's not the person running for the Democratic nomination anymore. That person has been replaced by a guy who can't freaking talk normally. We need to show, like, this guy, he's not in the right mind to go and be a president. He's going to be second term Reagan all over again. Hell, I'd even go so far as to say he's probably like last year's Woodrow Wilson. Jill's going to be running the country, not Jill Stein, Jill Wyden. Okay, VP, I guess. And the thing is, for some reason, people always also stress the whole age thing. Like, oh, he's too old. Bernie's too old. Biden's 1 year off. There's literally no old argument. The next thing we need to do is we need to expand the Bernie coalition. The Bernie coalition, what do we know about the Bernie coalition? They're usually young, they're minorities, working class, progressive, but we need a little bit more suburban. We need more, we need more normie Democrats. We need more normies. I think maybe Bernie should start pulling out some more endorsements from the party. And we might be seeing that in the future because, there's still speculation of Warren endorsing Bernie. And with Warren, Katie Porter, Deb Haaland, Rahul Grijalva, Andy Levin. Another thing that we may have to do, which may be unorthodox, is, I'm not going to say we should do a Ted Cruz, but maybe Bernie should start giving whispers on who his running mate should be. Like, maybe he should start doing whispers like, oh, Nina, Tulsi, Warren. And I know many people might not like the idea of Warren being his VP, but the thing is, that's clearly something they're discussing. And that's clearly something on the table. And it would work. Because who is Warren's supporters compared to Bernie? Bernie's supporters were less college educated, more racially diverse, and younger. Many of Warren's supporters were older, more well-off, college-educated white people. So yes, it would expand the coalition, but it would also keep a decent amount of like-mindedness between the coalition. We'd still relatively be on the same page. And another thing that we need to show that is clearly something that we need to do, stress the normie, stress the Obama, stress Obama. Bernie and Obama worked well on a lot of things. You need to stress that. Obama's still popular. But also you need to make it sure that you make it so that Obama still doesn't endorse. Because hopefully, and I'm really hopefully glad that Obama is going to stick to this, make it so that Obama is still pressured enough to not endorse. Because Obama should not be endorsing anybody in the primary. And Obama's made that promise. He said he's not going to endorse anybody in this primary. Endorsing someone in the last primary was a mistake. But keep stressing that, like, oh, I worked with Obama to get this piece of legislation passed. You need to keep stressing that, especially in states like Florida. And you also need to stress the Obama-Cuba thing. Also, stress the working class stuff. Because remember, there's still many people who believe that the working class voter likes Biden. And that is somewhat true. Working class voters still kind of relatively don't hate Biden. But you need to keep stressing the trade. That's what won you last election. Keep stressing trade. Stress that Biden is part of the establishment. That he's like, with super PACs and all this stuff. Do a lot of the same things you did with Hillary that were true. Like, yes, you are corrupt. And again, that's one thing that is a bad thing. Bernie keeps saying, my good friend. And yes, that is both a good thing and a bad thing. Normie Democrats don't like it when the Democrats fight each other. And Bernie is still trying to keep this civil. Like, yes, he will talk about Biden and his faults, but he will still talk to him as if he's a friend. He will still talk to him as if he's a friend, because ultimately Bernie Sanders believes the Democrats are ultimately the good guys, and that helps normie Democrats align more with Bernie because he's like, oh, he's on this team. He's on our side. Another thing that will help Bernie, like, address some of the other criticisms that Bernie has been levied by the moderate corporate Democrats. You know, Bernie doesn't have crossover appeal. He only appeals to the far left. Bring up the facts that Bernie has the most crossover appeal of all the candidates in the primary, even the ones like Tulsi and Yang. He has crossover appeal. Bring up events of him in rural West Virginia, where the rural West Virginians were clapping and cheering for him. Bring up his crossover appeal, because that will make normie Democrats think, yes, he can win. He's the good one. Also, bring up another criticism of down-the-ballot races. Bring up the fact that you would bring out turnout. Keep stressing, like, turnout is the one thing that makes Democrats win. The more the people turn out, the more Democrats win. And that's kind of true. The more people turn out, more Democrats are elected. And say that with my candidacy, look at the stadiums that I fill. Look at the stadiums. Look at all of the groups that I have behind my belt. I will bring this momentum to the general election. Because now, it will not only be us in this place and no Joe Biden supporters. Now it will be us in this place and the Joe Biden supporters and the Pete supporters and the Amy supporters. Bring the party together. Be a unifier. Yes, you can still criticize Joe Biden. That is true. Still, he's worthy of criticism. But you also need to stress the uniting part of your platform. Because the uniting part of your platform will win. And the thing is, there's also one other thing that we need to keep bringing up. Similarities to other candidates. Because believe it or not, there's still people who are undecided and are still planning on voting for Warren. People that are still planning to vote for, Tulsi Gabbard. We need to win those people as well. We need to show the unification. And it's starting to look like it works because polling is now showing Bernie getting steadily leads now that Warren is being excluded from the polls because she's no longer in the race. So we need to keep stressing that. Stress the populism. Stress that you will not be bought and paid for by the highest bidder like Donald Trump is, even though Trump promised that he wasn't going to do that. And that's another thing you need to stress. This is the biggest and probably the most important thing that Bernie needs to stress. He is the antithesis to Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a faux populist that campaigned as an outsider, that said that he wasn't going to take any of the corporate PAC money. He wasn't going to, he was going to raise the money all by himself, and da-da-da-da-da. Bernie is a true populist that is literally the antithesis of everything Donald Trump stands for. Bernie Sanders is inclusive. He brings everybody together. Donald Trump is a divider that will tear everyone apart. He needs to keep stressing all of these things in order to win the Democratic nomination. This will work. And Bernie is starting to realize this because he's starting to stress some of these strategies even more. Stressing polling, showing that he will beat Donald Trump in a general election, etc., etc. One thing I'll say before I go is, Milwaukee, you elected 3 socialist mayors. It's time to send one to the White House. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that bell to be notified when a future video of mine comes out. And if you're interested in more content from me, you can go to my website or follow me on Facebook, Twitter, or Quora, or check out my articles on the Independent Political Report.